Students across the country are posting images of what's on the menu at their schools in a new phenomenon called lunch shaming.
Cafeteria food has always been the butt of jokes, but this isn't funny.
How is that milk?
Look at what they're giving us at lunch.
Students, disgusted by what they're being served, are taking their beef online. Can you even tell what this is? Apparently, it's supposed to be a chicken cheesesteak sandwich.
Look at this. This is the main meal. It looks like puke and applesauce.
Evie cut into her food and it was all pink. So while I was eating my chicken sandwich, I finally looked into it and it had like pink lines running through it. It was just bright pink. The orange was cut into and it was moldy and black and gross. It was horrible.
I was eating the chips and then I look in the bag and there's like this fried little black thing in there. Don't know what it was. It was really gross. Like I just stopped eating after that.
School lunch is sometimes it's okay, but other times I just don't know what I'm eating.
We'll be in school for like till 4 o'clock, and then when we do have lunch, it's at 1 o'clock. So people be hungry. So I'm getting online, got my food, and it was on this tortilla bed, and I didn't know what it was. So that's the worst kind of food, when you don't know what it is, and it doesn't even look good. Couldn't eat it. My conscience won't let me.
There are 17 million American children that could literally go hungry every day that they're not in school, because the only access they get to food at all is school food.
When I go down there and we're serving it, I know that I don't want to eat it and that I don't think it's healthy, but yet I'm serving it to 600 kids.
50% of children between the ages of 2 and 15 have fatty streaks in their arteries, and this is literally the beginning stages of heart disease.
And if they're eating junk food in schools, then the schools are telling them that that's okay, it's appropriate, it's what happens in schools. That's not right.
We've had officials in the Department of Education, in the Office of School Food, tell us that they have to keep their numbers up for the lunches, that they're in the business of serving lunch, and they want to give the children what they want.
Schools typically have no idea where most of the food that they're serving children comes from.
Ah, yes. American school lunches. While countries like France are feeding their kids stuff like this.
Scallops with a curry sauce.
Curry sauce avec de la crème fraîche.
Wow. And what, carrots?
Ça, c'est la coquille de Saint-Jacques.
Oh, okay.
And this was just the appetizer.
It's a 4-course meal. Kids will start off with some grapefruit here, followed by veal with prunes and mushrooms, organic, and spinach and rice, also organic. Then they'll have some cheese because this is France after all. And for dessert, an organic banana.
Over here in America, we have fond memories of soggy rectangular pizza, chocolate milk in a plastic bag, smiley French fries dipped in seed oil-filled ketchup, nachos drenched in that signature cheese-like substance. And if you were a rich kid, maybe you could even afford the coveted Domino's pizza slice.
Domino's pizza. I like Domino's. So good, I'm gonna eat it. Amazing.
When you see what's in the cafeterias now, you can't blame the lunch workers. They don't have anything but an Alto-Shaam to heat food up to a safe temperature, and it's barely food at that.
You got sloppy Joe, barbecue sauce with pork.
Whatever happened to cooks actually cooking?
It's easy to come in here. This is the best tool we got right here. Box open.
That's your chef's tool.
That's it. Open up a box. Serve it. Give it to them.
Yeah. Out of the course of an entire month, 6 out of 36. You're only cooking 6 out of 36 meals.
But why? Why is American school lunch this disgusting?
Schools tell us that they're seeing a 50% increase in the amount of lunchroom trash.
Kids are now throwing away twice as much food as last year.
Waste goes up. Waste goes up about 97%.
We visited a school in suburban Chicago just this month where middle schoolers analyzed their lunch waste and were shocked to find 46 boxes of unopened pears. They're all unopened, totally unopened.
If the youth are our future, why are schools knowingly force-feeding our youth the worst possible food on this planet?
One of the things that we're surprised by was a particular kind of chicken. This is meat from egg-laying birds that have been retired, that are no longer producing eggs. And nobody really uses them much on the commercial market. Even Kentucky Fried Chicken to McDonald's declines to buy this stuff. It is, in some cases, commonly sold to the pet food industry. The school lunch program bought a lot of it, tried using it in patties, using it in salads and that kind of thing.
Well, school lunches have a long and profitable history in America. And to answer that question, we need to take a trip back to World War II.
This could be the first generation of children in the United States that lives less than its parents.
Nobody is safe from the dangers of the child obesity epidemic.
Food is the ultimate life hack, but a close runner-up is Grammarly Go. Grammarly Go is a product that offers personalized generative AI assistance so that you can write way faster by generating text instantly, on demand when you're typing up an email, a document, or on social media. But unlike other generative AI tools, Grammarly Go fine-tunes the text it generates based on your unique context, your preferred voice, your writing goals, and the app you're writing in. For example, if you have a ton of emails to reply to like we do, instead of writing replies from scratch, simply click the Reply Quickly button. Grammarly Go will give you a summary of what the email you got is about and give you a few different ways to reply. Then click the reply you want to go with, Grammarly Go will generate it, you can adjust the reply with a click of a button until you're happy with it, and then just insert it into your email. You can also highlight specific parts of the email you want help with, click the Improve It button, and then you can use Grammarly Go to improve it from there. And the best part is that this AI tool is even available on Grammarly's free tier. But if you use our link, grammarly.com/evilfood, you're also going to get 20% off Grammarly Premium. You're going to be amazed at what you can do with Grammarly Go. So pause the video and click the link below right now. Thanks to Grammarly for sponsoring this video. The year is 1945. America had just won World War II, but America was about to enter another war, the Cold War. And in order to have a fraction of a chance of winning, the US military knew they would need the strongest, toughest men available. But surprisingly, they couldn't really find any. See, before World War II, the US just came out of a devastating depression. You know the one. After eating a solid diet of water pies, peanut loaves, and canned prunes for 10 years, the men of America were looking not so hot. So General Lewis B. Hershey, a former school principal who joined the armed forces before World War I, went in front of the House Agriculture Committee to deliver a stern warning. General Hershey was head of the military draft system, and he warned that 40% of military recruits were failing their physical exams due to malnutrition. And with impending war on the horizon with the Soviet Union, if the government didn't do something about this fast, the US might never stand a chance. So the government came to the rescue, and they launched an emergency nationwide feeding program called the National School Lunch Act. In their eyes, the National School Lunch Act was a matter of national security to safeguard the health and well-being of the nation's children. And it would ensure that the government had more effective pawns that could be used in the war machine. See? Everybody wins. So the government started sending food to schools all over the US. And where did they get this food? Farm surpluses. Whatever farmers had too much of, they would ship it to schools and the kids would eat. There was no need for a balanced diet. This was wartime. It was all about using what the nation had, maximizing calories and breeding good little soldiers. And guess what? The program actually worked. The children got stronger. And America became one of the biggest military superpowers in the world. And as the decades went on, the National School Lunch Program would just keep getting bigger and bigger. And soon, what started as a way to groom nourished soldiers of war turned into a political tool.
There are poor children in this country that can't afford lunch. Free school lunches are a basic human right. Vote for me and I'll give it to them.
And vote they did. By 1969, 15% of American children were getting a school lunch for free or at a highly discounted price. And in the mid-1970s, Richard Nixon poured even more money into the school lunch program. So now, the standard was set. Parents were used to their kids getting fed at school. Parents now expected schools to keep feeding their children no matter what. And those same schools were now dependent on the government to keep sending them money for lunches. There was no going back. So when there was a giant funding cut for the National School Lunch Program in 1981, American public schools were left in a bit of a pickle.
The fact is, we'll never build a lasting economic recovery by going deeper into debt at a faster rate than we ever have before.
In 1981, US President Ronald Reagan cut funding for the National School Lunch Program by around 25%, which was a massive number. Now, schools couldn't afford to feed 1 out of every 4 students. So the ripple effects were massive. Schools were left with less money to spend on food, wages, and equipment, while still having to feed the same number of mouths. So schools either had to find a way to reduce costs fast, or they would have to shrink lunch portions, reducing the number of poor children eligible for free or reduced lunch, or famously declare that ketchup was a vegetable in order to meet nutrition standards, as recommended by the government. But as they say, massive problems offer massive opportunities to make money. And as a big food conglomerate, this was your perfect opportunity to swoop in to save America's youth. As a big food conglomerate, you obviously want to make as much money as you possibly can. But the problem is, every adult in America already knows about your products. They already know about your lunch meats and junk food. There's no more money to be made in that demographic. So you have to target the next generation, the kids. And this giant school lunch budget crisis was your perfect way in.
And when you look at lunch, we have about $1.50 to spend on actual food.
That's it.
That's it. Is that enough?
I think it's very, very difficult.
So here's what you did. You formed special exclusivity deals with American schools to get your junk food onto their lunch tables. And for every can of soda or bag of chips sold by the schools to those unsuspecting youngsters, the school got a generous cut. This was a genius move. Not only did this help alleviate the school's funding problem, but it also incentivized schools to peddle your product. But it wasn't just soda and junk food companies that benefited. If you were a bulk food manufacturer like US Foods, Tyson, and Cisco during this time, you were also in luck. Because without government funding, schools no longer had the money to train actual chefs. So what other choice did these schools have but to buy frozen, highly processed, factory-made food from you? So now, big food companies like Cisco that made food for hospitals and prisons were now also nourishing America's youth. Hospital and prison food. Now that sounds tasty. Trained cooks were replaced by the iconic minimum wage lunch ladies.
It's easy to come in here. This is the best tool we got right here. Box opener.
That's your chef's tools, the box cutter.
That's it. Open up a box. Serve it. Give it to them.
Yeah.
And from that moment forward, school lunches just slowly kept degrading into the sad, processed, chemical-filled state that it's in today. But not to worry, because all this garbage food technically still meets USDA standards. As a big food conglomerate, if you really want your ultra-processed pizza or lunch meat or chips to be served in cafeterias across the nation, you need to play by the government's rules. Specifically, the rules set up by the USDA. The USDA decided exactly how much sodium, sugar, and fat is allowed in each cafeteria item. And up until 2010, their rules were pretty slack. I mean, kids were basically eating airplane food for lunch. Clearly, the government wasn't monitoring things too closely. But as the years went by, the USDA started to notice that school children were getting, well, fatter. According to the Department of Defense, more recruits were being turned away for obesity than any other reason. And between the years of 1980 and 2009, obesity rates in teenagers went from 5% to 18%. Maybe it's because kids have been eating food laced with seed oils and toxic chemicals for the past 30 years, but hey, that's just a theory. So the government came to the rescue again, and the USDA tightened its requirements. Now, instead of schools having to offer just one serving of fruits and vegetables at every meal, schools had to at least give students 2 fruit and vegetable servings to choose from. The students would be required to take at least one of them. And instead of serving white bread, schools had to serve bread that was at least 50% whole grain. And finally, snacks and entrees needed to be significantly lower in salt, sugar, and fat. Interestingly enough, nowhere in these historic changes did the USDA ever mention a word about reducing the amount of artificial ingredients in school lunches. But regardless, the cafeteria wars had begun. And as a huge corporation whose business model entirely relies on food that's high in salt, sugar, and fat, this is not what you wanted to hear. Now you needed to find a way around all these stupid school lunch rules before another food company takes your place. So, what did you do? You found a loophole, of course. According to the USDA, every school lunch meal needs to contain at least 1 serving of fruits and vegetables. Okay, but what if you're a company like Domino's and want to serve your pizza slices as a full meal? Pizza is one of the most profitable school lunches for big food, raking in $500 million every year. We can't just give up pizza. But 1 slice of pizza definitely doesn't contain a whole serving of fruits and vegetables, right? Or does it? Think about it like this. 1 slice of pizza has around 2 tablespoons of pizza sauce on it. And those 2 tablespoons of pizza sauce have been cooked down from a larger amount of tomatoes, right? So really, that little bit of pizza sauce is equal to 8 tablespoons of raw tomatoes, which equals 1 serving of vegetables under the USDA guidelines. And boom. Schwan Food Company's iconic rectangle pizza, or Domino's Smart Slice, are now officially USDA school lunch approved. And what about the low sodium thing? Hey, no problem. No need to reformulate or lower the actual amount of sodium. Just package your chips into smaller bags. That way each serving will technically have lower sodium because there's less chips. The food itself is still the same horrible concoction it was before, just a little downsized and perfect for tiny hands. And since you're technically following the rules, the USDA can't really say anything about it. Another change to the USDA's rules were that school meals have to have less starchy vegetables, also known as French fries, which means that your beloved crinkle-cut fries, your curly fries, your smiley face fries, they were all under attack. So, the potato and frozen food lobbies mobilized, orchestrating waves of letters from lawmakers to Tom Vilsack, the agriculture secretary, that extolled the potato's low cost and high potassium content. When Vilsack went before the Senate to discuss his budget request for the year, Senator Susan Collins of Maine, a state that is one of the country's largest producer of spuds, marched into the hearing holding a potato in one hand and a head of iceberg lettuce in the other.
My question, Mr. Secretary, is what does the department have against potatoes?
And so the potato and frozen food lobbies won. Potatoes were now officially a vegetable. And yes, that includes French fries.
These are the worst school lunches in the United States of America sent to us by our followers.
Today, school cafeteria food is in the most abysmal state it has ever been in, while masquerading as health. Take Domino's, for example. Domino's serves their Smart Slice pizza in over 13,000 schools across the US. And these Smart Slice pizzas have 33% less fat and 50% less sodium than the original version. So it must be healthier, right? Not really. On the ingredients list, you'll find soybean oil, a seed oil, maltodextrin, a food additive that increases your likelihood of developing autoimmune disorders, including Crohn's disease, and sodium propionate, a preservative that has been shown to cause damage to the dopamine system in animal subjects. Ah yes, we're sure the Domino's Smart Slice makes children very intelligent. Or take the snack food giant Frito-Lay. They've got a whole collection of smart snacks for schools. And these school-friendly products seem healthier, but in reality, they're pretty much just the same as the original grocery store version.
Interesting, when we tested the study the first time, we saw this, and so we thought, well, what if we put these two products side by side? Can they tell the difference? And even then, they had trouble telling that they were different products.
GMO corn and seed oils included. And these processed foods aren't being served as a once-in-a-while treat. Kids are getting fed these abominations every single school day.
You got 2 bags of Ruffles, a pretzel, a Twix bar, and a Gatorade.
And apparently, it's making them dumber. According to Roland Zullo, a researcher at the University of Michigan, found that schools that served pre-cooked meals from private companies had lower test scores than schools who cooked food from scratch. But the biggest slap in the face is a newcomer on the school lunch block: Lunchables. Lunchables, just about the most ultra-processed food you could feed a child, is now available in your school lunch. And just like Domino's, Lunchables are so terrible that they had to design a special version to be accepted into the school lunch program. But it's still terrible all the same. So now, America's future can choose 2 specially designed meals when they line up for lunch: turkey and cheddar cracker stackers, or Lunchables extra cheesy pizza. And yes, these special Lunchables do have slightly better macros than the ones in the grocery store. But you want to know what else they have? Glyphosate sprayed wheat. They also have nitrates, a type of food additive that has been associated with higher rates of breast and prostate cancer, and sodium phosphate, an emulsifier that has been linked to chronic kidney disease, and the list goes on. As the old adage says, you are what you eat. And if you let big food feed your kids are gonna become exactly what big food wants them to be: fat, sick, dumb, and addicted. But it's not just food that's toxic in America. Our water supply is also insanely disgusting. And it's not just fluoride that we're talking about. Our tap water also contains a whole cocktail of chemicals that have been known to cause diseases like cancer, obesity, birth defects, and lowered IQ. And we're not just talking about tap water here. It's bottled water too. Actually, bottled water might even be worse. And in our next video, we are going to expose it all and go over what you can do about it. So make sure you subscribe. And be sure to click the square on the screen to sign up for our free newsletter to get breaking news about our food supply to protect yourself and the people you care about. Click the square on the screen to sign up now.